Hello friends, this is the battle system tutorial, a very basic one, but we are going to do it now. People have been asking for it and this is the very basics that I can show you. It's quite complicated, but it can be done with Adventure Creator. It just needs some things like, for example, you should have an enemy character with animations. I have just used Mixamo for this fella here. It's quite simple to use. Just upload your character and select any animation you want and then download those. But yeah, we use that. We have idle animation, walking animation, death animation, and then an attack animation. Very simple things. And then what you should also have for the player is some sort of weapon. So let's go to our player character, the prefab here under downloads first person player. We should add an empty game object under camera. And this will be our weapon holder. And on this weapon holder, we should add our weapon. We have this very basic sword here. So we will use that. Where is this pivot point though? Oh, its pivot is there. It actually might cause some problems because the pivot is on the wrong side. This is better because the pivot point is like on the handle. I don't wanna mess with that right now. So let's just rotate the sword first and position it in front of the camera somewhat. You can click always on the camera and see where the sword is in the camera here on this little screen. Let's move it to the side. Our camera's field of view is now 75. I think it was 60 previously, but I changed it. Just so you know, in case you're interested. Let's actually move the clipping planes to 0.01. As close as possible things can get to our player. That is good to have. Okay, so I'm not good with animating, just so you know. So I'm not going to make any special cool animations, just a very basic one. Very basic animations, like something in part of like Morrowind, just a chop. A chopping animation for the blade here, because that's all I can do at this moment. But yeah, once you have your weapon, you need to create a new layer. We have created a layer called weapon, so we will change the sword to be a weapon in the layer weapon. Remove the culling mask, remove the weapon from your player's camera. Go to your scene, find your main camera, and also remove it from that. Uncheck the weapon. Now we cannot see our weapon in the scene, but it is attached to our player. What we should do next is add a camera child object. Remove the audio listener from that because our main camera already has that, and the scene should only have one audio listener. This will be our overlay camera, so select the render type and click overlay. Change the field of view to be the same. 75. It doesn't really matter if it's the same, but for us it's the same everywhere, so it's simple. You should probably make sure post-processing on so you can see effects on your weapon if you have any, like special glows or anything like that. And on this camera's culling mask, remove everything and then select just the weapon. Now only this camera will show our player's weapon. And by doing that, we make it so that the player's weapon will not clip inside the objects that are in the scene. It will always be shown in front of the player. After we've done that, we go to our main camera, click the plus icon on under the stack options, and select your overlay camera. We might as well change the name to weapon cam, so it's easier to remember where it is. Now if we check our scene, we should be able to see our weapon. It's right there. We don't have any animations for it right now, but it will not clip inside objects. That's what we want. Okay, now let's go to make a quick animation for our weapon. Let's create a new animator for our weapon here. Begin animating sword. And this is the very basic sword idle first, because we should have some sort of idle for our weapon. Maybe go up and down a little bit. That's fine. Like a little bit of a breathing animation or something like that. Move it up. Like it's slower. It's a bit like it moves too much in my opinion. So let's fix that quickly. How's that? Now it's very subtle movement. Maybe just a tad. That's okay. Now it's a bit more. Okay. So we create sword idle first, so we can have this as a default. And then sword attack. Okay. This is the hard part. Okay. Go here, select rotation and chop. It should probably, hold on, should we just have it like that? That's our very handy weapon chop animation. Yeah, as I said, I'm not very good with animating, but this is pretty much what we have in Morrowind or something. We have different like animations, but this is the basic chop animation. We have our sword attack. Now, to make sure our sword always goes from attack to idle, so it doesn't loop, we do that. And since the sword attack always returns to the same position as is the idle, we can pretty much just, transition can be something really small, I think. I'm not sure if that really matters for us. Let's put it like that. Okay, we have our player weapon and its animation. The most simplest animation you could have in the world of game dev. When all else fails, just channel your inner Morrowind and just do a basic job animation for your weapon. It's not important right now. It's not meant to be flashy. I'm here to show you the basics, what to do with Adventure Creator. So the code part is the most important part, just so you know. It's not the animations, it's not the enemy models or anything like that. But let's make the enemy. So first we want to make an empty game object. Zero the position of. And put the slender or your enemy, whatever it is. Make sure it's also zeroed out. You should make the empty game object, because sometimes if you put your NPC script straight on your model, it might fuck everything up. It might be moving sideways when it should be facing front and stuff like that. So easier to manage, just make an empty game object and then put your enemy object with its animator under that. Okay, now we go to Adventure Creator Editor, Character Wizard, next choose NPC, throw our enemy in there, just name it enemy, doesn't really matter. Next, finish. There we go. We have our enemy here, big boy. So we can remove the mechanism parameters, we won't be needing those. Its speed should be like 2.9 or 3 or something along those lines. Make sure it can't move faster than that because it's a weird dude. We are moving with rigid body, so make sure the interpolation is on. And what else do we need? Change the hotspot label to be just an empty space if we don't want its name to show when we are going to attack them. I think the collider is just this, which is fine. I think everything else should be fine. I think we can add the animator mechanic settings to be the Slender Ghost where we have our actual animator. It doesn't have anything here on this one, but it does have the other one, so I think that's something that we should have there. There's our sound child, we won't be needing that right now. Okay, we have our enemy. Let's start by making an interaction. So do that and name this to be enemy attack. It doesn't really matter because the enemy will use triggers for its attack. So don't worry about that. Just name these in a way that you'll understand them. So first things first, we will just going to check. Let's make sure the when running is set to run in background, and I want to check if our animation works. We will animate object, mechanism, and play custom. We will open our first person player prefab and then drag our weapon there. It has actually forgotten for whatever reason the animator controller, so let's drag it back there and save. Let's save and make sure that it's still there. Yeah, it should be there. It might have forgotten it because it didn't have constant ID previously or something like that. I'm not really sure. But the clip name was sword attack, which will happen when we attack the enemy. And wait until finish so we can just spam it. Okay, let's see if that works already. To have our animation for the blade, we have that little swaying idle animation on the sword. Click the guy, it like wants to move, it really doesn't. It is, I think this is forcing itself to go back into the idle. So I think we should actually, hold on, make sure at least remove those. We should sword idle have an animation transition to sword attack, or should the sword animation, hold on, let's see how this works first. Does it matter if it has the transition in there? Because this might be something that the adventure creator is doing for us. Yeah, okay. We just need to add the transition both ways, so it doesn't like force. It's really sad attack animation, but it's there. We might actually move it just a little bit more in our animation here when we attack. Here, let's go to the record and move it like down there or something like that. It's a little bit more swing in our attack. Maybe a bit more. -1 for the round numbers. We do like round numbers. Okay, that's fine. We have our weapon animation. It's quite simple, but I'm here to show mostly the action lists. So that's why we are doing this like so. So to make sure we cannot actually spam the attack, like just clicking too fast and furious, we will want to disable the hotspot of the enemy when we click them. So move that to the front. And then we will be going to enemies variables. So attach a variables script to your enemy. They will have, I think, 4 variables. The first one will be enemy health. Then we will add enemy damage. And these two should be integer values. Put the enemy health to like something, some value. The enemy damage will be calculated later. Then we have a variable for player is in range, and then we have a variable for is dead. These are the very basics you should use. Okay, back to our enemy attack script. So now that we have these component variables, we'll want to add a new variable check here, and component check for the enemy. We will check if the enemy's health is more than 0, then we will do our attack. Okay, so before everything, we will have to set our player damage. So let's make a new variable called player damage. It will be the type of integer. So set that to a random value. You can do this in different ways depending on your game type. You could have like different stats that increase the player's damage. But here we are just using the very basic set as a random. Let's say it's 0 to 5 and then increase by 5 more. So basically the damage of the player will always be a random value between 5 and 10. And after our damage has been calculated, we go to set a component variable's value, which will be the enemy's health. The method will be formula, and then we will have to go back to our inspector of the enemy's health variable, and we will need to have our enemy remember these different variables. It should also have the remember variable script. So now that we have that, we can see replacement tokens for all of our different component variables. Let's copy the token text from the enemy health variable. Go back to your action list editor. Paste it there, go minus, and then go to AC game editor. Select your player damage replacement token, copy that, and then minus that from the enemy's HP. That way, the enemy's HP will be lessened by the value that we calculated for our player's damage here. If you have more complicated calculations for what the player's damage is, you should probably create a new action list as an asset file and do the calculations there, then just run that before dealing the damage to the enemy. So our sword attack will go there. We will not actually wait for it to finish here, because when it hits, basically when the sword is in its like hit point, then we will remove the health from the enemy, and we will also need to add, hold on, I will just need to check quickly how long was the sword attack animation. It's 0.25. So basically 0.15 or something like that would be the point when the damage should be dealt. It's not that like it doesn't need to be as like on point, but I'm just going to use that as a base for when the blade should actually hit. So here we are then removing the health from the enemy. And then at the same time, we should also play a sound. Let's play one shot. You need to find your own audios. I cannot share those with you, but I can still use some of these. So what do we have? We have a sword swing. Should probably play before, and then sword swing with blood should be what we play when we hit. So let's copy that and paste it before the animation and play a swing sound. I have multiple here, so if you want to have more variety, just go add action variable, run check random number, have like 3 different audios, and then just it selects that by random, but I will try to keep this auto range. Keep this action list simple, so we are disabling the enemy hotspot, We are playing the one-shot sound for the sword swing. We are playing the sword attack animation. We are checking if the player has more than 0 health. We are calculating the player's damage, increasing it by some random number, and then waiting just for a bit until the animation is in a point where it should be hitting the enemy, and then we remove the damage from the enemy, and at the same time we play an audio that indicates that the player has hit their enemy. And then we go variable check component enemy's health is less than 1. If it was less than 0, the value could still be 0 and they would stay alive, so less than 1. And then if it is less than 1, we will go ahead and play animation for our enemy, which would be, was it just death? I think it was just death. Let's see. I mean, not this, it takes these. These are the names. So death, and then it automatically goes to dead. And then attack for later goes to idle. And then walking. Yeah, that's fine. And we should also add at the same time a dying sound for the enemy. So let's see our audios. I'm hurt. Great. That's a hurting sound. And then they will die. And they will stay dead. And if they're not dead, then we will go to hotspot and enable the player's hotspot again, so we can hit them again. And also there should probably be just a tiny wait here before we actually enable it again, so it's a bit more sensible. Okay, auto arrange that action list. That should be fine. So as a safeguard, I might as well copy those and place them here if something happens that also do the death animation. If something makes the enemy lose health other than the player, so we're hitting here. So make sure that is also played here. Okay. Enemy is just standing here. It dies. Yay. The enemy is dead. Oh, it does that. I don't know why our blade is doing that. It stays the loop in the wrong thing. Oh yeah, because of the stupid things here. Yeah, I think that's the reason. Probably. Is this the reason? Because from sword attack it should go to sword idle. It plays it again and again. This is why I don't do animations, because I'm not good at them. I think for this tutorial I'm going to just remove that and make sure our players, let's remove basically the idle animation from the sword, so it stays there, so that way it won't, I think it won't like override our animation and it doesn't start looping. Yeah, now it doesn't do it again. Now we should add some, like, if you want, you should add some particle effects when they are dealing damage. Also, the enemy should have its body to be kinematic, because Adventure Creator will just override that basically when they start moving. So that way the player can't push them around. That's what happened in just a moment ago. So we cannot move them. Yeah, we can still like pretty much click as fast as we want. So we want to make sure that our player cannot actually do that. So what we should just do is add more weight here before we actually enable the hotspot to be back on. Now that works like that. It is very basic and ugly, I know, but this is just a base for you to start working on something better if you only want to use Adventure Creator. Okay, so next up, let's make sure that the enemy can also attack us. So let's create a new trigger. It has to be the child of the enemy. And let's remove the box collider and add a sphere collider. Let's make sure its radius is a bit more. How long can you reach with your attack? Like if it was this, it's like, that's fine, I think. Okay, this is the enemy's reach. When the player reaches this, the enemy will start attacking. And it will be running background and continuous trigger type. So they will do it again and again as long as the player is in range. And make sure to set your sphere collider to be trigger. There's one thing that I forgot to add to the enemy attack. So basically when they die, make sure to add the variable set component enemy to is dead. And also just to make sure player stop following should be also here. So the enemy won't be following us after they're dead. That would be quite something, but they shouldn't be able to do that. And also add them here. Stop following and make sure the component is dead is set to true. So the triggers. The first trigger will be attacking trigger. Let's open that, and first things first, character will stop following the player, not the man, the enemy. Stop following. Now we will set variable component enemy player is in range to true. We will also want to check here before doing anything. As another safeguard, let's check the component variable if the enemy has more than 0 health. Or we could also check if they are not dead, then only then they can attack. So let's go here, make an character animate, select your enemy, do the attack. What was its name? Was it just attack? Now if I remembered all these things, life would be easier. Here, new animator, attack, it's just attack, plain and simple. Not the change parameter though, we will play custom and attack. Okay, does the enemy have, let's go with the zombie attack sound, play one shot, we have this kind of zombie attack sound, so it says that when it's attacking. Then we will like have to wait for a little bit because the damage will come only after the enemy's attack is already like, because this has a quite a long winding animation. So let's say at 1 second it will come the damage. So we'll wait for 1 second and then deal the damage. So let's wait 1. And then we will check again if the enemy component player is in range is true, because during this 1 second the player could dodge our attack. So to make sure that the enemy cannot deal damage to us, we will have to check it again here. We are setting it to be true here, but the other trigger has the like trigger to set to false if the player leaves the range. But we will do that in a second. So now we will go ahead if the player is in range. Again, variable set component, select our enemy, enemy damage. And set as random, we will do the same as with the player. Set as random, let's say 10, and increase by 10. Now the enemy's damage is 10 to 20. And after that calculation is done, we will go ahead and set our player HP, which we did in a previous tutorial, set its method to formula, and go ahead and copy your replacement token for the player HP, minus, then select your enemy, go to inspector, scroll down to your variables, and copy paste the replacement token from enemy damage here. So we will be removing this value from this HP value. We also have the menu that indicates damage as per our previous damage screen. It shows this, so we could just turn that on when we are taking damage because it's fun. So I think that's our attacking trigger done. So it's continuous, so it will it cannot actually interrupt self, so make sure to remove that. And there's just 1 second wait always before the attack comes through. And we should add more weight to this, so to make sure that the enemy's animation has enough time to go all the way through. So let's see again with the enemy zombie attack. It's 2 and something. 2.2. It will be clearer when we test this. Okay, so we have the attacking trigger. Let's copy paste that and change that to be the chase trigger. And it's a bit different. Its trigger type will be on exit. So when the player exits this trigger's range, things will happen. So select everything and delete everything. We could copy paste this back a couple of things. So we will start following the player, face when idle, follow player, update frequency, minimum distance, maximum distance 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. Oh, but let's say 1.2. So, or maybe from 1 to 2, because the range is that. It's 2 up to 2, so 1 to 2 is fine. And then we will also set the variable component from the enemy to make sure that the player is actually not in range anymore. And this should also only happen after the enemy's attack is done. So let's see if it works. Hold on, I'm gonna check a few things. Actually, yeah, I should also set component enemy if they are not dead, only then do all these things. It should this same be for the attacking trigger though? Probably. If they're dead, they cannot attack the player. Just a safeguard. It shouldn't be able to do that anyway. Before we test this, we should also actually, when the enemy dies, we should disable those triggers. So object send message, turn off, and then select the triggers that are under our enemy here. So those two will be turned off. Not there though. Only after death. Yes, out of range. Okay, let's test this. So we have our enemy here. Attack. They damaged us. They start following us. The following, like the walking animation is not there. But it has the attack animation. And we have our attack animation. And we can kill them. There we go. So the enemy's animation is not like going to walking. We should make a couple parameters actually here. Parameter float speed. So we have the move speed float speed. Let's see if this works. And then walking condition, if speed is greater, is less than 0, let's say 0.1. And then here speed is greater than 0.1. So if they move just a little bit, it shouldn't happen. Okay, let's see if that works. Does it actually work? I'm not sure. So they're just in idle there. We go to the range, they attack us. We can dodge. They start moving, but no animation. I'm not sure. Okay, there was a little bit of animation. Does it actually go through the idle before doing the walk? Yeah, it does. I guess so. Slidey boy. There we go. That's you walking. I don't know why it takes so long for it to change. It could still, I guess, damage us after it's dying. But yeah, very, very, very basic. Very basic things. Hold on, let's see if the animator, these things matter. As exit time 0, so it immediately should go to walking or idle, depending on what it's doing. This is just me fooling around with the animations, because I'm bad with animations. Yeah, it's still doing that. That's something to do with the parameters, and like I'd have to actually see how to set that up correctly, but I'm not sure if that's really the topic for this tutorial. The topic is that we have a very, 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 very basic enemy here. So let's see the attacking trigger. We are checking actually here before dealing damage. We can also check if the enemy is dead or like, yeah, if it's dead also. If it's not dead, then only do this. So 2 component checks. If the player is in range and if the enemy is not dead, then deal the damage. Because at that point we could have, it had the time to damage us again, even if it was already in dying animation. The time when the damage comes to us and the animation with the enemy doesn't like sync properly at the moment. But that's again just fucking around with the values. There it was fine. That's fine. We move back and go back, then it does the attacking again, but it doesn't show the animation, then we take damage. But yeah, we can kill it. They can also kill us. It has the same, like, if we die, it has the same as what we did with the fire trap thing. But yeah, what about wanting to have more than one enemy? Let's duplicate that boy. Move it around a little bit. So we have another enemy here. Enemy 2. Let's just, for clarity's sake, put these little numbers here so we can see more clearly what's going on. We will also need to duplicate the attack script here. So everything that we need to do when duplicating or making more enemies, let's make sure this uses as interaction the new attack. And then remember, all of these component variables have now changed for this bad boy. So let's go through the enemy attack 2 first. So here we will have to disable the other enemy and play check the components from this enemy here. And then again, check the components from this enemy and make sure to copy and paste the correct replacement tokens for when they are needed. And make sure the enemy is set correctly in each point where it needs to be set. So like so, and then the correct triggers also are affected. Like so. And then here and here and here. And then also these triggers here and here. There we go. These triggers should also have the remember trigger script, so when we are saving and loading or changing scene and coming back, this will remember what we have set for this. So if they die, we go and come back, they won't be going around hitting people again. Basically that. Then the triggers, we will also here check the correct enemy. Correct things here. And also here, and also here, and also here. It will remember the correct settings because they are in the, like these choices, they're in the same order, so it will automatically choose that. But the only thing we have to do is change the component variable replacement tokens. So here when the player is dealt damage, change that to the correct one. And also on the chase trigger, enemy, enemy, enemy 2. Yes. Now we have two different enemies and they should both work and deal damage to us. So this guy. Yeah, it dealt damage. Well, not animated. Okay, we can just kill you. There's more checks to be that you should do to make sure that the enemy's animation syncs up correctly. But that's the most basic basics. The most basic basics of this battle system that we can do here. Okay, so it could be more advanced, but to keep it as simple as possible and for you to build upon it, this is what we have for now. Let me know if you need some more info on this or like more how to do different things for this. Like for example, I could do some sort of like when the player has some skills, so increase the damage based on those skills. So yeah. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I really appreciate all of you. And if you're interested, the demo of my game is on Steam. Play the demo, see if you like it, and remember to add it to your wishlist. All of these things help me as a solo indie developer a lot. Thank you. Bye.